Now, I want you to close your eyes just for a moment and imagine with me Genshin Impact as a full-price title with full party mechanics, deep character customization, class structure, and Monster Hunter mission structure. You now have Granblue Fantasy Relink, a game that puts out a demo before its release, something that shows an insane amount of confidence in 2024 when we never see demos in the first place. But that's how strong they feel about this release. And they should, because after getting my hands on it, I'm blown away. I'm genuinely surprised with the quality and the overall feel of the game. I'm a huge fan of games like the Tales of series, Vesperia, Berseria, Arise, etc., and Final Fantasy games as well, so this is way up my alley. This is a game that I've been cautiously anticipating for quite a while now, because I just didn't know exactly what the game was going to be like when it came out. But now that I've had the chance to play it, it's incredible. It genuinely surprised me, and I can't wait to talk to you guys today about what exactly Granblue Fantasy Relink is, and why it's a game that you're going to want to play. Granblue Fantasy Relink is the upcoming action RPG that's developed by Cry Games, set in the expansive and richly detailed world of the Granblue Fantasy universe. Relink features a blend of exploration, narrative-driven quests, Monster Hunter-like quest structure, and a really dynamic combat system. You can expect a rich, character-driven story typical of the series, with the main narrative focusing on a group of Skyfarers that are traveling through various Sky Islands. The game features an action RPG combat system with incredibly deep character customization, with around 16 playable characters and up to 4-player multiplayer. A really interesting aspect of Granblue Fantasy Relink is its approach to being a full-priced, non-live service game. In an era in which many games adopt a live service model with ongoing content updates and microtransactions, Relink stands out as an offering as a complete standalone experience. This is going to resonate with many players, like myself, that want a more traditional model and have raised expectations about the quality and depth of a game at its initial launch. Let's not kid ourselves, an action anime RPG that's a full-priced feature-complete title is relatively a myth nowadays, but it's great to see a game that's following the trends of some of the greatest titles of 2023. You look at games like Alan Wake 2, Armored Core 6, Baldur's Gate 3, these are all games that came out full-price titles, feature-complete, and really didn't ask us for anything else after they were released. So this is just something that's great to see, and I know it's going to make a lot of people happy, including myself. Now, with that said, when I first saw Granblue Fantasy Relink, I thought it looked a lot like Genshin Impact, just because you could see that each character is tied to an element. It looked like there were basic attacks that you would then, pepper in some special attacks and then maybe have an ultimate. But that's where the similarities end. These games couldn't be any different. Granblue Fantasy is a game that actually has full party mechanics, even the holy trinity of sorts, with a healer, DPS, and tank. The deceptiveness of the combat of this game is something that caught me a little bit off guard, because there's actually multiple layers of complexity to it that is probably going to take a little bit of time to master and really figure out. And I'm really excited to see how this all turns out in the end. But the one thing that I have to say, if you're going to stop watching the video at this very moment, is that this game just feels good to play. That's it. It just feels good. And you know exactly what I'm talking about because you've probably played games like that in the past. For me, it's Armored Core 6. Armored Core 6 just felt natural. All the controls were exactly where they needed to be. Everything felt snappy. Everything felt instant. And it just felt good. Relink just feels good. In Relink, you'll engage in fast-paced action combat. The system is designed around the combination of both light and heavy attacks, which can be strung together to create combos. Take special note that each character plays vastly different than the next. The game is rather deceptive in that there are special timings for basic and heavy attacks that can be used to create stronger combos and may end up having some type of impact on your character's specific perks, like for instance filling up a special gauge that's unique to that character. Each character in your party has a unique set of skills and abilities, allowing for a very diverse range of combat styles. For instance, some characters are going to excel at close quarters combat using weapons like greatswords, martial arts, or katanas, while other characters are going to specialize in long-range combat using either magic or firearms. This variety ensures that we're going to have the ability to mix and match with party members, find exactly the kind of characters that suit our needs, and try to make a dynamic team that coalesces and combines into an incredibly effective unit. Another critical aspect of the combat system is special abilities known as arts. These are powerful moves that are designed to be able to deal significant damage, utilize a character-specific mechanic, heal, apply debuffs or buffs, but require strategic use because they are governed by a cooldown system. Timing and combination of these arts with regular attacks and dodges are going to be key to mastering the game's combat. With successive attacks, you'll end up filling an enemy's stun gauge, which will trigger link attacks, where you and other characters will deal damage together, dealing a significant amount of damage. Once you have actually linked enough of these successful strikes, you'll enter into a time slow mechanic where characters are basically defenseless. As fights progress, you're also going to be filling up a gauge that's just located under your health. This is going to trigger your ultimate attack, what's called a skybound art, that deals devastating amounts of damage. While it may be tempting for you to just want to blow that ultimate once you get it, I wouldn't. If characters use their skybound arts in succession, you'll end up triggering a link state, and depending on how many ultimates you release at once, you'll end up triggering what is called a full burst. Depending on that number, you're going to do even more damage and cause even more effects on the enemy. The combat in this game is so satisfying, and I don't think that can be overstated because it's just that good. The game performs incredibly. If I had to use one word to describe the game, it would be crisp, because no matter all the different animations that are going off on screen, I experienced no dips in frames or anything like that, no slowdowns, no hiccups, no nothing. The game just played well, and as a result, it feels great. Now, if I had to say there was something that really impressed me about the game's combat, it's just how diverse and distinct each character is from the next, because they really are that unique. No character plays the same. Even if they're using similar weapons, they have completely different fighting styles, and it feels good as a result. I played with a spear character that's flipping around, jumping all over the place, slamming down into enemies, being able to do like fire damage from afar, buff enemies with attack boosts and things like that. It felt fun. It was fast-paced and cool. I switched over to this melee character, this martial artist, slow and methodical. You have to think about every attack, where you're going to put it, how long you're going to stand in place before you need to dodge out or make movement, especially if you're about to use his heavy attack, because it takes time to charge and you have to stand in place to do so. It's a very purposeful character. You have to commit to everything that you do. And each character has something similar to that, where they're very unique in how they play and how you're going to have to tactically use them in fights. And they all have their own tactical uses as well, as they provide all kinds of different abilities to the party that the other party members don't have. Maybe it's things like a defense break or a power boost or an attack down or something like that. And it just feels awesome. That's all I can keep saying, is that it just feels good. It's exactly what I want from a game like this, and it's something that I know a lot of other people do too. Relink boasts an impressive roster of 20 characters at launch, with the promise of more characters post-launch, each going to bring their own unique style and abilities to the game. The number of characters that are going to be available to us at launch is relatively substantial, which is going to allow us to have a really diverse and customizable experience. This variety, by the way, is not just for show. It plays a crucial role in how we're going to approach the game and strategize for combat. Now, in regards to gear, Relink offers a wide range of equipment options for us to be able to outfit our character. The gear mostly revolves around the use of weapons and sigils, each contributing to a character's stats and abilities in different ways. The gear system allows us to be able to fine-tune our character's strengths and weaknesses, as well as give them specific combat roles, adding an extra layer of strategy to party management. Now, it should be noted that this is all that I saw that was available in the demo. However, there could be more options later once the game is released. Sigils seem to play the most crucial role in defining how we're going to build our characters. Some give boost to core stats like strength, health, defense, and critical chance. However, there are others that provide much more specific increases to things like stun or lowering your health to increase your attack. Now, while this may seem relatively basic or limited to some, add this to our ability to change our character's skills, and your build options are going to open up quite a bit. One of the game's most engaging features is the ability to change and modify skills. This customization enables us to tailor our characters to specific roles within the game, such as tank, DPS, healer, or support. While the demo did have a limited variety in choice, I'm assuming that the full game is going to have a much wider variety. Just as an example, we could take a character like Narmaya, who has a lot of multi-hit attacks, give her sigils that are going to boost her stun build-up, load up abilities that support this, and then use her to build up link strikes. Now, as mentioned previously, different characters in Relink have incredibly distinct playstyles, catering to various player preferences. For instance, you could play as Io, the mage, who is really adept at lowering defense and attack and causing various status ailments from afar. You also have Siegfried, wielding a greatsword, dealing slow, heavy, hard-hitting attacks with a toolset that's best for tanking or countering. Or you could play as the main character, Gran, who is a bit of a jack-of-all-trades with high damage attacks and quick combos, access to defensive buffs, debuffs, and also AoE healing. Now, accompanying all these different character options, gear, and skills, each character has their own unique combat mechanic. For example, Gondagoza, the martial artist, can fill up a gauge as long as you're timing his attacks perfectly. As this gauge fills up, you're able to spend that on unleashing a powerful heavy attack. Naryama, the katana wielder, summons butterflies around her as long as you're completing successful combos, which then can be spent on using her arts to increase their damage depending on how many butterflies you have. There is a ton of diversity to have here, because with 20 characters, you're going to have a ton of different options on how you want to build your party, what characters you want to have in there, what abilities you want to give to those characters, what kind of sigils you're going to give those characters, how you're going to approach combat. Are you going glass cannon where everybody's going to just be high damage? Are you going to have a tank? Are you going to have somebody doing status ailments from the side? I know that when I was playing the demo, I had Io basically just being my status mage, lowering defense, lowering attack, boosting the party, and it worked incredibly. She basically got the top rating every single fight. Now, I realize I'm going to repeat myself when I'm saying this, but these characters really are just that distinct that it almost feels like you're playing a completely different game when you switch to a different character. First, I played Gran, then after Gran, I played Gondagoza, and then Naryama, and I about gave myself whiplash because you really have to take the time to figure out how each one of those characters work. Most games that are like this, at least the basic attack structure is going to be the same, but it's not even close to the same between any of these characters. And that's something that I really appreciate, because it really gives this awesome and fresh experience every time you pick somebody else. And I also am really happy to learn that unlocking these characters isn't something that you have to do just by doing the story alone. Well, I'm sure that's probably going to be the way that we unlock most of them. We actually get the choice of who we want to unlock when we want to unlock them. We get summoning materials through completing the different story quests, and then we just pick the characters that we want, and those are the characters that we get. I love that, because there's characters that I'm going to be much more interested in than what a game would normally just feed out to me or normally just dish out to me. This is something much different than many other games do, and I love it. Player agency. I love player agency. Now let's go ahead and talk about questing. The game's main quests are essential to the storyline, unfolding the narrative as we complete them. These quests involve a series of objectives, such as interacting with NPCs and defeating enemies, all culminating in battles against progressively stronger bosses. Completing main quests not only progress the story, but also unlock new in-game features like locations and materials that were used to summon companions, while also providing us with XP, equipment, and other useful items. Additionally, in Relink, the game is going to feature over 100 quests, including endgame content, which can be tackled either solo or with up to 3 players. Some mission structures are arena-based, similar to Monster Hunter games, where you're just going in to fight a boss and that's just the only objective. While we don't really know exactly what the endgame content or progression is going to look like, if the demo is any indication, we may be looking forward to progressively harder boss fights that are going to require even more coordination and cooperation through multiplayer. Now, I've seen a few criticisms levied at the game for having a hub-based mission structure, but as somebody that's been playing a lot of Monster Hunter lately, I am here for it. I forgot just how refreshing of an experience it can be playing a game that's palatable. Something that I could sit back, play it for hours, or something that I could play a mission and then just hop off and go do something else. So, criticisms aside, I'm here for it. Now, one of the other things that I want to make note of as well is that the game is relatively linear. So when you're going to do some of the main quest scenarios, you're going to notice that this isn't a big open world game or anything like that. So if that was what your expectations were, temper them. But what I will say is I was really surprised with how many little nooks and crannies and different things you could explore and discover while you were playing the game in some of these more linear areas. There's all kinds of different treasure and objects to be able to interact with that would start little mini games and things like that. It made it really fun and enjoyable. And I think when I was going around the world, I was seeing other objects that looked like we were going to be able to interact with that just weren't in the demo right now. So I'm excited to see what else they have. Now on to my only real criticism, which is the inability to be able to switch characters mid-combat, and I see this as a significant limitation, particularly when we're comparing it to other games in the genre that do offer this feature. This restriction impacts not only your strategic depth, but it confines you to a role and specific abilities of only one single character for the entire fight. In contrast, games like the Tales of series, Genshin Impact, and many others give us the benefit of being able to switch characters in combat. Being able to switch characters allows us to be able to adapt dynamically to different scenarios, utilize different skill sets, and strategically manage our health, debuffs, buffs, and all the different abilities of our entire party. I'm wondering exactly how this is going to play out in later levels in the game when enemies become a little bit more challenging and bosses become a little bit more complex. Not having the ability to time debuffs, coordinate healing, and manage my different cooldowns is something that could potentially end up being an issue. Now, this is something that's going to likely be remedied by just playing the game multiplayer, because the game is designed around that in the first place. And I would imagine most of the fights, especially in the later half of the game or in the end game progression of the game, is probably going to be designed to be taking it on as a group rather than trying to take it on with you and just your AI companions. However, that's not going to be for everyone, and that's the reason why I'm holding on to this criticism, because I do think it's a mechanic that probably should be in the game. My hopes is that they just do what Final Fantasy XV did, where they just kind of patched it in later, where we didn't really have the ability to use anybody other than Noctis in Final Fantasy XV, and then they kind of switched that out, a few months after the game's release. But with that said, I will say that the AI did seem relatively intelligent. They didn't cause any issues when I was playing the game. Buffs stayed up when they needed to. Debuffs went on the enemy when they needed to. Healing came when I needed it. But I'm really interested to see how this is going to play out when we get to much more difficult content in the game, as these bosses can get more and more complex. Because even some of the mechanics from the earlier bosses that I saw, I mean, there's some really crazy stuff that they could probably pull off later on, which I'm excited for, but also at the same time a little bit cautious of, with only having the ability of AI companions behind me. And I didn't see anything in the control scheme saying otherwise. So with that said, maybe this is something that changes when the game is fully released. I don't know. We'll have to wait and find out. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with the demo. Too much, actually, because now I'm sitting here wanting to play more of it, and there's only a demo available, and now I have to wait for the game's full release, and that's just a problem all in itself. But luckily, I can just go back to playing more Baldur's Gate 3, I guess. But with that said, I'm really excited for this game. It exceeded my expectations. It was something that I was looking forward to. I was hoping that it would be good, and it's far better than I imagined it could have been. And that's really promising, because if it's that good in a demo, it's likely to be even better once we actually get the opportunity to play the full game. So if you haven't had the opportunity yet, the demo is available on PlayStation 5. You need to go play it, go check it out. But this is a game that I'm happy to be able to suggest to other people, so please do give it a chance when it does come out. Keep an eye out for reviews and things like that. There'll definitely be one on this channel eventually once I 100% the game and things like that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to leave my Patreon link down below if you guys would like to support my videos moving forward. I'm going to put credits up that are going to show people from the Patreon on there. Outside of that, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, and I will see you guys in Granblue Fantasy Relink. Peace.